The secrets of the small shafts of the Great Pyramid. 1. Underbar the discovery of new shafts in the Pyramid of Cheops in 1872. Part 2. Continue with the above in the first part. Since incense was ritually burned during the king's burial, this would have to be determined by examining the soot particles deposited on the shaft walls. Since soot is made of carbon, the C14 method is suitable as age-proof. Since visitors to the Queen's chamber repeatedly held torches into the shaft openings after 1872 in order to get a better look at the course of the shaft, it is certainly too late to find any original soot parts. The bird in the above quote is probably the Ba bird, which is used for the transmigration of souls into the solar bark. Since the ascension is a cultic act, just like with false doors, the passage can also be closed with blocking stones without hindering the cultic act. Current pyramid literature emphasizes that the small shafts in the Pyramid of Cheops are a unique feature that does not exist in other pyramids. In the Pyramid of Kaffa, however, a counterpart was found in the burial chamber, as early as 1818 by Giovanni Belcini, who reopened the pyramid for the first time in modern times. He describes this discovery in his book published in 1820. At the north and south sides, there are two holes, which run in a horizontal direction, like those that are seen in the first pyramid, but higher up. As early as April 1818, a book review of the travel descriptions of the British Royal Artillery Captain Henry Light, who published his journey through Egypt and Nubia in 1814 in a book at the beginning of 1818, appeared in the magazine The Quarterly Review. Finally, this book review contains a summary of the latest discoveries made by the Italian Giovanni Belcini in Egypt. What follows is a verbatim excerpt from Belcini's information about the opening of the Pyramid of Kaffa and the discoveries therein. On entering the Great Chamber, I found it to be 46 feet 3 inches long, 16 feet 3 inches wide, and 23 feet 6 inches high, for the most part cut out of the rock, except that part of the roof towards the western end. High up and near the center there are two small square holes, one on the north and the other on the south, each 1 foot square. They enter into the wall like those in the Great Chamber of the first pyramid. So here we learn more details about the two opposite holes on the north and south sides of the chamber. They are square and each 1 foot wide, approx. 30 centimeters. This means that they are only slightly larger than the so-called air channels of the Cheops pyramid. Unfortunately, we don't get any further details about the shafts. Howard Vyse writes about these openings in 1837. I again carefully examined the excavation across the horizontal passage in the second pyramid, and also Belcini's chamber. In the latter, square holes like the beginning of air channels had been cut on the northern and southern sides cube and others below them marked out with red lines. If a northern air channel had also been begun on the exterior, it might have been a guide for the forced passage. Mr. Perring imagined that they might have been used in the construction of the roof. What we can gather as new information is that there may have been additional openings planned in the chamber, or the openings were originally planned at a different height. The red lines served as preliminary drawings, or auxiliary lines in ancient Egypt. Perring then finally gives us the information about how long the shafts are. Rectangular holes, 11 inches by 8½ inches, had been cut in the northern side of the chamber to the depth of 17 inches, and in the southern to the depth of 13 inches. They may have been the commencement of air channels, or only to assist in the construction of the roof. 2 others have been traced out in red beneath them. B. The shaft is 43.2 cm long on the north side and 33 cm on the south side. The cross-section is 28 x 21.6 cm, the latter value also appearing in the cross-section of the small shafts in the Cheops pyramid. Perring suspects that they were either the beginning of air shafts like those in the Pyramid of Cheops, or that they were recesses to support the roof structure. The latter doesn't seem particularly plausible to me. The Egyptologist Miroslav Werner sees the openings as merely holding devices for a wooden structure. In the north and south walls of the chamber, the mouths of the shafts only appear to resemble those in the Queen's and King's chambers of the Great Pyramid. In this case, there are only short horizontal openings that may have been used to fasten a wooden structure within the grave. Werner thus takes up Perring's second speculation that the openings were needed to support the roof structure. However, he connects the openings with a wooden structure without writing what it was supposed to have been used for. A reference to Perring or Belsny regarding the openings is missing, as is the length of the shafts. Whether they definitely end in the core masonry or are just closed by rubble remains unanswered. If the openings were actually intended for a wooden structure and wooden beams had been anchored in them, Belsny would probably have found small remains of wood in them. It is unlikely that earlier grave robbers, medieval Arabs, or even earlier looters retook simple wooden beams from a supporting roof structure and then removed them without leaving any residue. Due to the cross-sectional dimensions, it is more likely that shafts similar to those in the Pyramid of Cheops would be created here, which initially run horizontally before bending upwards. Why this venture was then abandoned remains a mystery. Maybe the opening is just blocked with rubble on both sides and doesn't really end after this short distance. It should be noted that the air shafts of the Pyramid of Cheops were also freed from blockages with rubble for the first time in modern times by Howard Vyse in 1837. The same procedure was then repeated in the middle of the year. Morton Edgar in the 1920s and Rudolf Gantenbrink in 1992, as the shafts were blocked again, each time. Modern standard works on the Giza pyramids contain no reference to small shafts in the burial chamber of the Pyramid of Kaffa. At Stadielman 22 you can see in the photo of the Chevron burial chamber that the small shafts here were closed in more recent times. This is probably intended to prevent speculation about the meaning and purpose of the openings. If the small shafts in the Pyramid of Chevron actually have something to do with the small shafts in the Pyramid of Cheops, this would no longer remain a unique selling point for the Pyramid of Cheops. The